everyone, and thank you for listening to Brain Fruits, the podcast on women changemakers. I'm your host, Hannah Becker, and today I have the great pleasure to introduce you to Jeanette Carlsson. She's a tech sector CEO, blue chip business leader, digital innovation and transformation executive, founder, business, government, and diplomatic advisor. Welcome, Jeanette. It's a pleasure to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you, Hannah. And it's a huge pleasure for me to be invited. So really looking forward to.
September 22nd, this Wednesday, Tech Nordic Advocates and the Major of Employment and Integration are hosting a very special program here in Copenhagen, Women in Tech Startup Scale-Up Growth. What can we expect from this event?
You can expect to meet a lot of really interesting female tech founders. That's what I really want to focus about. Incredible women that have taken the plunge to become tech entrepreneurs. Not always easy at all. Lots of challenges on their way, but a whole number of them that have founded tech businesses across the different industry sectors. And so you're going to meet those. And you're gonna meet obviously the mayor of Copenhagen for Employment and Integration, who is incredibly interested to hear the stories of these women, of their ideas, of the challenges they faced in the ecosystem, and the challenges that they have overcome to launch their businesses. And you're going to hear about our program, our Women in Tech Growth program, and what we're trying to do to help potential women tech entrepreneurs, but also women that have already launched businesses in tech who are trying to grow and scale those, including internationally. And so this program that we are going to talk a little bit more about, I hope, and which we'll talk about on Wednesday, is all about helping women tech entrepreneurs overcome the challenges that they face out there in order to launch and grow and scale tech businesses. And you're going to hear from all our amazing partners who, without whom we would not have been able to run this program. The Danish Industry Foundation, KPMG, Matheson, Netcompany, a whole bunch, and most recently London Stock Exchange, who are joining us as well as partners. So it's going to be a very exciting things and new announcements that I can't talk about just yet, but which you will hear and probably see in the press after Wednesday.
Well, I don't know about you, but that sounds super interesting already to me, and I'm very excited to join on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Talking a little bit more about Tech Nordic Advocates here in the Nordics. It's the sibling of Tech London Advocates, a network of over 10,000 tech leaders, entrepreneurs, and experts in London and across the UK. What can the Danish ecosystem learn from its bigger sister?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think as you know, and everyone who's listening will well know, it's incredibly important to have the right kind of networks and access to expertise and investors and partners who can support you and help the growth of your tech business. And that's really what's behind Tech Nordic Advocates, in the same way as it was behind the launch of Tech London Advocates when Russia launched Tech London Advocates, or TLA, back in 2013, was really coming on the back of the UK's digital tech economy strategy, to really try and make digital and technology sector a much bigger part of kind of the national economies, and so Russ set up TLA back in 2013 to really say, hey, we need an ecosystem to fuel this, to help deliver the strategy. Yeah. And I was part of that in London with Russ, and really saw firsthand in building TLA what can be achieved when you bring the right people together, and that's really as simple as it goes. And you think, wow. You match startups with investors. The startups get access to capital, investors get deal flow with a bit of funding. The startup can launch, grow, and scale, and so on. So that was the inspiration. and being Danish and British, I thought, right, well, we need the same here, in Denmark, but not only in Denmark, across the Nordics and Baltics as well. And I think with the added challenge that the UK doesn't have, that each of the Nordic markets, Denmark being one, is too small to offer access to scale, to the right skills, to capital again, to serial entrepreneurs who are experienced in growing and scaling tech startups. So we lack scale, and so that has consequences in the sense that we lose a lot of companies to London, to Silicon Valley, to other parts of the world, just because in order to scale, they go elsewhere. And that's a dangerous trend, because we need to keep all of that talent, all that innovation, and all of that growth back home. So that's the thing. So how do we create scale? You can't, create bigger countries so we can work together. We can create a pan-Nordic Baltic home market. We can try and teach each other in the Nordics that just because you live in Stockholm and you need investment, you should not only look in Stockholm. There might be opportunities in Helsinki or in Copenhagen or in Oslo or in the Baltic countries. So that's the thing. So, let's try and break down country borders. We can all be different nationalities, not trying to make all the same, but trying to really say, hey, actually, there's a bigger playground here in the Nordics than just our own country. And that's what we want to achieve with Tech Nordic Advocates, is provide big opportunities for the startups and scale-ups within our home region, and also, which I think we're going to talk about, across our global tech advocates network. Yeah.
Wow. Yes, I think leveraging the power of a network that you mentioned here, also in order to keep capital flowing in the Nordics and not having everything just disappear towards the more US hemisphere, is a really, really, really big problem at the moment. We have some other problems and challenges that we can see, especially when we talk about women in tech and in entrepreneurship. Why do you think, in general, do we need more women in entrepreneurship and in tech in the Nordics?
Well, actually, and there's a danger at the moment when we talk about this whole diversity thing, that and this particular program that we're running, that we just focus on the women, because diversity and inclusion is about a lot more than just quote unquote the women. And what this is really all about, actually, at its simplest, is not about women or men, or whether you're black or white or green or blue or some other color, or whatever gender. It's not about that. What it's about is there's a lot of talent out there. And actually, at the moment, we're not using all that talent properly. And those countries that will, let's call it, win going forward, will be the countries that are adept at innovating, at creating and growing companies that offer, innovative solutions to some of the challenges that we face. And so it's not really about whether you're a woman or a man or somewhere in between or something else. What it's about is there's a lot of talent out there. And currently that talent isn't being used. Yeah. And this particular program that we're running here is about saying, hey, there's a lot of women out there who are highly educated, across the Nordics. We have a high level of education, men and women. But actually, there are a lot of those women that would like to become entrepreneurs and they would like to become tech entrepreneurs. But right now, it's really hard because there's structural challenges in the ecosystem and so on. So we're not using that talent. And that means a lot of talent is wasted, right? And that's a problem because, when we fast forward, and we want to keep being, innovators and, and have sustainable growth and, jobs and, exports and welfare and equality, we can't have any of that if we are wasting a lot of the talent. And because we have an imbalance between, the genders and also ethnicities, we have to correct those. So I could also be running a program for, for people of a different, ethnic origin than Nordic, right? Because that's another issue.
Yeah.
So it's not just about women, but it so happens that this is what we're focused on with this particular program, because it's a big issue. So it's about correcting imbalances and making sure that we use all the talent, and indeed that talent isn't being suppressed or wasted, and it is at the moment.
I really like that you mentioned and that you highlight particularly that it's not about making or showing that women are better at anything. It's not about this old idea of feminism. It's really about diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity of perspective, and how to ensure that we are able to listen to one another in a better way, especially in today's economy where we are so overflown with information already. So I really like that aspect. I think that's really important to highlight. You'd also touch upon a little bit what we could gain by including more voices in our future economy. We have a couple of studies, for example, by McKinsey that touches upon the power of parity, how advancing women's equality can add over 12,000 trillion to global growth. And then there's also the report from the World Economic Forum Studies Global Gender Gap Report, highlighting the benefit of improving parity between men and women and all genders for economies across the globe. Despite this knowledge, we still have a digital skill gap and a technology gap when we talk about accessibility of certain groups to just vital infrastructure such as internet. Compared to men, for example, 250 million fewer women are showing up online. This hampers those who are supposed to benefit from increased technologization to have a voice in its creation. How thick is the glass ceiling that especially women entrepreneurs face here in Denmark, and how can TNA, so Tech Nordic Advocates, break these down?
Well, it's massive. It's a short answer. It's massive, and all the data that you just quoted now just add painful reminders of how big the gap is. And actually, I think one of the big challenges we have is, and I hear this every single day, I a couple of times today even, that actually we don't know. When I say we, I mean as a country, whether it's Denmark, Sweden, wherever, in the Nordics, we don't actually know how bad the situation is. We think of ourselves as, equal countries, that the rest of the world thinks of us as being incredibly equal countries. And we are in so many ways, very equal, except in entrepreneurship, unfortunately. And that's a fact. And when we say that out loud, and when we point to these data that you just talked about, and show that actually we are at the bottom of the OECD league, we are, well below the EU average for entrepreneurship, that comes as a surprise to a lot of people, in Denmark, in Sweden, in Norway, in Finland, in our own countries, but also internationally. When we say, actually, we are bottom, they go, really? You? We thought that the Nordics were streets ahead on equality and all that sort of stuff. And we are in a number of areas, but not in entrepreneurship. So it's massive. And it bites itself in the tail, because we have, very few women entrepreneurs, it means we have very few role models. So it becomes a self-fulfilling, problem, in the sense that, if I can't see you out there as an entrepreneur, then I have no role model. And us girls, we tend to like role models. And so I have no one to aspire to, to say, hey, I want to be like Hannah. Because there aren't many Hannahs out there that are women entrepreneurs. And that's a problem. We need to look in the, see ourselves in people out there. And because there are so few, we can't see ourselves in anyone. And so we get jobs, we get different jobs, we do other things, but we don't become entrepreneurs. So the lack of role models is a real problem. And then we tend to be quite insecure as human beings, us girls. So we don't think we have the right skills. to set up a business. And I can tell you, having worked on this program now for a very long time, the women I see on this program don't lack skills any more than their equivalent males. They just think they do. And that's that's a sort of insecurity issue. And then there's a whole, about, maternity and things like that. And actually, so why should I become an entrepreneur? Who's going to pay for me if I have children and stuff? And actually, so that's been a structural challenge. And actually that's being fixed now, in the sense that Denmark is introducing pay during, maternity pay for entrepreneurs. So that roadblock is being removed, right? But there are a lot of different things that are in the way. And so there are a lot of reasons why, women should just stay in their jobs, right? And so they do. That's the thing. But there are also a lot of women that sit in jobs or perhaps come out of university or have not worked for a while or lost their job during COVID, that are thinking, actually, I've got this idea in my head and, it's kind of bubbling away. I've seen this problem and I've got a solution, but I don't know if I can make that jump. There's a leap of faith. I don't know if I'm going to do it. Yeah. And if or when they then decide to jump, they're jumping into what feels like dangerous territory because it's so male dominated, right? Yeah. So structurally that's an issue. Sadly, very sadly, we are also seeing and hearing very concerning behaviors out there. That's a fact. In fact, you would be shocked if I started telling you anecdotes about what goes on out there. It's very sad. And then there are more kind of, I guess, understandable human behaviors that are not necessarily sexist, but because the ecosystem is very male, men tend to recognize male ideas and ways of doing things. And so if I turn up with a female idea, and by that I don't mean, I have a beauty solution of sorts. That's not what we're talking about. But I might come at things in a slightly different way, or have a different approach to starting and growing a business that isn't so common in the male ecosystem. And because it isn't so common, my way of doing things might not get acknowledged, recognized, even rewarded. And so alarm bells go off in this male ecosystem of investors and thinking, not sure about this one.
Yeah.
And so that's how a lot of the time women get a no, right? Just because there's a disconnect between the way things are normally done, because it's done by men, and the way women do things. It's just a different way of doing things. It's more than one way to fry an omelette, right? Yeah. But because the female way of frying an omelette is not as well recognized, it tends to get met with a no-no. And so that's telling us that we need more women in the ecosystem. We need more women investors. We need more in order to bring out this diversity of ideas and skills and approaches, ways of doing things. Yeah. Right? That's the thing. And it's not all sexism. There are some terrible sexism out there. That's awful sexism and entrenched behaviors. But it's not all sexism. Some of it is just what I said, is because there tends to be one way of doing things, then when you bring a different way, it raises eyebrows. And so it's easier to just say no and do what you've always done than embrace something new, right?
Maybe to put some heat under I like the reference here to frying the omelette from different sides, to give some heat for that. We know that a lot less funding goes to women entrepreneurs than it does to male entrepreneurs in comparison. For example, in 2018, only 1% of funding in the Nordics, and this is really shocking, went to all female teams, and 11% went to mixed teams. This compares to 2% and 10% respectively in the US. So this already shows that there is really a hesitance, as you just mentioned before, because of doing things differently from male investors to fund female teams, because of course it will always be, it's a different perspective, it's a different heritage, it's a different social coding, which is not good or bad in both ways. It's just very different. And I think it's, as you say, it's a very human thing that we don't like so much when something doesn't sound as what we are used to.
Familiar, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not familiar. So you tend to reject things that you're not familiar with, right? So you think, oh, it's safer to stay with what I know. Yeah.
How can we attract? Sorry.
Yeah, no. How can we attract more women or more?
How can we attract more international capital and help women grow firms, especially here in the Nordics?
Well, I mean, this problem of lack of capital going to women entrepreneurs obviously starts with there being very few women. So that's the problem to start with, isn't it? So if we had more women entrepreneurs, by extension, more capital, more funding would go to women. But because we have so few, very few try to raise capital, right? So it's kind of, those two things are linked. Yeah. So there's a couple of things. I mean, the number one, which is what we're trying to do with this program is, and have been very successful at doing, is to saying, hey, let's bring these women out and let's address these challenges that are so well documented one by one. Yeah. So all the things I was saying before, women like role models, they lack networks. So hey, because the ecosystem is very male, women entrepreneurs, potential women entrepreneurs tend not to have great networks. So if you've been sitting in a corporate or in a public sector organization for 15, 20 years, you don't have the network in the ecosystem, in the startup, you don't have the network, right?
Yeah.
And so you, and so you're starting from scratch. So there's a lot of different problems, let's call it that. So there's women feel they lack skills, they don't have the networks. They don't feel safe, secure enough to kind of start a business. There's a whole bunch of different things. Yeah. So we have taken all of these issues that are well documented and said, right, how do we address those one by one? Yeah, in one program. And that's what's led to this program that we have developed. And it's built on my involvement with programs, like that in London and the US. We worked, closely with Canada, who I say this often in media, has a whole different approach to women entrepreneurship, coming at a national level with a women entrepreneurship strategy and so on. And so, we've kind of said, look, we've talked about this problem now for some time in the Nordic countries. We really have. There's no lack of. I mean, there's any number of reports on shelves gathering dust. Yeah. So we've talked about it. So now let's do something about it, right? And me and you talking about it, won't solve the problem. Yeah. So there's lots of women out there that have done amazing things, to raise the issue in the public debate. So that's fantastic. That's very, very important. And we've had loads of networking events, helping women build networks and so on. And that's also really important, very important. Those are all part of the bigger solution, but it's not the only solution. That's a problem because, none of those things actually fundamentally take action. We've got to grab the bull by the horn and say, right, I know you, Hannah, you want to be an entrepreneur. So why are you not? What's stopping you? Right. So that's what we've done with this program. So it's in three modules. So number one is an international mentoring program that is made up of a number of components. One of which is each of the women on the program, has been given 2 mentors, mix of male, female, Danish and international, so we can give them a bit of hand holding, let's call it that, right? From men and women, right? This isn't a we're not pretending that, this is all, women know the answer to everything. There's loads of fantastic men out there that have created businesses and grown them and scaled them. So let's bring them in and learn from them, right? And get them to hold the hands of some of these women that are wanting to be entrepreneurs. So each woman has got two mentors. We've had the likes of KPMG and Magnus and others providing, skills development on our business school that we created. So women are telling us they don't have the right skills. So you're coming onto this program, so we'll give you the skills, right?
Yeah.
And actually what we're finding is they don't lack skills at all. They just think they do. So we're helping them write a business plan and give them access to legal advice and communication skills and executive presence, and stop being so damn insecure about yourself, and all of these things. And then we've given them access to office hours so they can go back to the lawyers and business people and say, look, I'm grappling with this issue, and so on. So it's a lot of hand holding, it's a lot of support, network building, access to our international network, all of the things they say they lack that are the reasons why they're not becoming entrepreneurs. So that's what we've been doing. And the next part of it, and that's been incredible, because we've created new tech businesses led by women. We help them grow, we help them raise capital, we have, help provide access to international markets, and London Stock Exchange being one of them, right? So they're now coming on board as a partner, and a couple of the women on the program said to me last week, to us, London Stock Exchange was somewhere out there, was a jungle that we would never think applicable to us. Well, because we've had, Tamara, and who's Nordic lead for primary and sort of capital markets, on the program as mentor. She's been giving a lot of teaching sessions and really explaining to these women entrepreneurs that London Stock Exchange isn't a big dinosaur out there. Actually, it is potentially a practical access to international finance when they reach a certain stage of their business, right? So all of a sudden, London Stock Exchange is now on the radar of women over here, and so it's all about bringing all of this opportunity to these women and saying, you know what, there's a lot of help here. Let's give it to you. And we have seen, and that's classic female as well. It's like the shy girl at the back of a classroom in school. The super shy but super bright girl, you move her to the front of the classroom and give a little bit of support, and the whole thing explodes. And that's what's happening with this program.
Crazy. Yeah, I'm super inspired, I must say, by your points here, and especially as you say, giving not only the infrastructure and technical skills, but to build more courage, and also to teach that courage doesn't mean necessarily arrogance. I think this is a complete misconception that has been long ingrained, especially when we, see females that are seeming very courageous. It didn't used to always have a very positive connotation. And luckily, this is going to change going forward.
It has to change, and we have to tell people, So I think what you're alluding to, Hannah, is this difference between assertion and arrogance and stuff, and it's like we're a little bit scared. There's something in the Nordic culture as well that we kind of tend to we're not good at boasting. I said this earlier on. I was talking at a London Tech Week event earlier on, and it's we're not good at boasting. In the US, they're quite good at saying, hey, you know what, I did this, that was a success. You have to. So we've been talking to the women on the program about self-promotion, building executive presence, standing on a stage, saying, you know what, this is what I do, and this really worked. We put some of the women out there in like live TV studios and given interviews and put them to press and media, and it's very scary to start with, but we've kind of said to them, you know what, if you don't talk about your business, no one else is going to. And we have to learn that. We have to learn to boast.
Now, Jeanette, you have over 25 years of track record of building, growing, and advising startups in this fast-paced digital tech and innovation space. What are some of your brain fruit, some of your recommendations that you would have for some of our listeners as a takeaway to help, especially women, to be successful as a tech woman or as a young entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most fundamental things, actually, when I look back at my career is ask for help. You'll be very surprised. People want to help. If someone says to me, you know what, can I have 5 minutes of your time? I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions about, I'm in this situation, I'm trying to do this or that or the other. Of course. But we tend, because when we're at a junior level or new to a situation, perhaps, we tend to think, oh, here's a really senior person. They probably won't speak to me because I'm too junior or too inexperienced, or so I think it's this mantra, which is kind of a bit of a typical thing for me to say, is that if you don't ask, you don't get. What's the worst thing that can happen? If someone says no, so what? You go to the next one. We have to learn that, right?
Yeah.
And that's some of what we have to learn when it comes to investment. And we have in the Nordics, we're not good at that. We tend to feel put down, particularly the women. So we go to an investor, we get a no. So we conclude, I'm obviously not good enough. I'm going to pack up and go home. Right?
Yeah. That's so true.
And that may not be the case. It may just be that that particular investor is focused in a different area. You might be a fintech, they're in the creative space or in the green space. And so it may be you're talking to the wrong person. So just because that person says no is not necessarily a reflection of you being bad, right?
Yeah.
It may just be you're talking to the wrong person. So you got to go and talk to someone else. So we got to learn that. We got to stop saying, oh, he said no, so I'm going home, packing up, and I'm applying for a job because I'm clearly not good as an entrepreneur. That's what happens. And we've got to stop that. We've got to say, right, okay, so what do I really want? Who's the right person to talk to? And then if someone says no, ask them, okay, so you said no, so this is not the right proposition for you. Do you know someone who might be interested in this, in your network? Right?
This is
ask for help.
Yeah.
Ask for help, and and don't take no as the end of the road. And that's something we can learn from Silicon Valley and from London. Actually, we have a whole different culture. If you get no, you go to the next person. They might say yes.
I think this is a great closing remark and a great encouragement and inspiration that especially when you get a human no, sometimes it is worthwhile to pursue just a different human. It might just be, as you say, maybe the wrong place and the wrong time and the wrong person, but next time it might be the right place, the right person, and the right timing. So I think that's a really great takeaway for our listeners here. Very excited to be joining the event on Wednesday. For everyone else, I hope this was a really great insight for you here together with Jeanette Carlsson from the Tech Nordic Advocates. I'm only left to say great thank you for your time and for being part of the Brain Foods podcast.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And don't forget, everyone out there, you can do it. Of course you can.